exits for position. Goes around the outside, it's in his teammate.
Qualified.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Barely Qualified, a Formula One podcast. We are your hosts. I'm Channing Apodaca, joined as always by Brandon Wood. Brandon, hello.
Hello.
How are you?
Doing well. It's been a busy week, for both of us, but
Yeah, it's been very busy.
this was a very fun race this past weekend. Actually, got to have a race here at Emilia Romagna this year. Missed it last year with the crazy flooding and stuff, but made it back here, and
Yeah,
I didn't even definitely not a disappointing.
I didn't even put two and two together when I had texted you, like, Friday or Saturday, being like, ooh, there might be rain on Sunday. And you were like, God, I hope not. And I completely forgot that it was rained out last year.
Yeah, it was I
And it
think
still wasn't the
lot-
worst race.
Still was not the worst race. And
Yeah.
last year it was like they canceled everything like the day that everyone was arriving to the track, and everything was
Yeah.
just getting too bad. Remember the shots of Yuki Tsunoda, who actually lives in the area, photos of him with some other AlphaTauri at the time, crew members helping some of the local community with some flooding that had happened. So
That's right. I forgot about that. Yuki doing his due diligence. Well, this was, like you said, it was a good race. Not the most exciting. It was Max Verstappen from Lando Norris and Charles Leclerc. Lando Norris coming this close to getting his second victory in as many races. That was kind of the highlight of the race and the weekend as a whole. Not a whole lot happening in practice or qualifying outside of Fernando having, God, the worst weekend I've seen him have in years.
Yeah, just from the start, it seemed like he was struggling. I mean, a few teams were struggling. I mean, Max was struggling starting off in practice. Checo had his crash in FP3 as well. So yeah, some teams not really starting off on the right foot. Some able to turn around. Fernando Alonso not able to whatsoever.
Yeah, Checo had a rough go of it. He hit that curb pretty hard, went sideways and slid. It seemed like that was kind of like that was par for the course. I saw a lot of guys getting pretty drifty out there during practices. And then, Max having just a really, really funky off start, but we all knew that he was going to end up putting it together by Sunday, regardless of where he qualified or not, which he ends up qualifying on pole. Thank you, Nico. But yeah, shaky weekend for a lot of drivers, a lot of teams, except for McLaren. They looked solid throughout. Not necessarily the best, although I do think that like over the span of the 3 days, they were probably on top the majority of the time, despite not getting the win in the end. But they looked to be the more solid of the teams.
Yeah, it was wild. I mean, for a good portion of that race, the beginning of the race, we pretty much saw the same positioning from qualifying continuing, and then as the race was going on, we're watching and saying there's not much action happening here, but sure enough, as tables start to turn, Lando starts to catch him, we start to think, okay, maybe Red Bull's dominance has been reeled in a little bit. We're not seeing the 20-second gaps from Max that we saw really not that long ago. So definitely showing signs that things have changed. I think this might not be. This could be a bit of an anomaly for Red Bull to kind of.
To be as shaky as they were.
Yeah, and it's also somewhat of I think everyone else catching up, right? So McLaren had these big upgrades going into China, or not China, going into Miami, which Lando was able to fully capitalize on. So seeing that pace here, especially compared to that of the Ferraris, who coming into this weekend, we're supposed to see, some performance upgrades as well, their first big upgrades of the year. And there was a bit of hype made about them, and it seemed as though it didn't really do a whole lot for them.
Yeah, they were kind of nowhere all weekend. They
kind of
put in like a little bit of a bid during qualifying, but like nothing that looked like they were going to be scary. Oscar and Lando both put in a last flying lap that looked like they might have taken pole. I think if Lando had not messed up one corner, or one sector where he went yellow in that final lap, he probably would have ended up on pole because his teammate ends up besting him but takes a grid penalty, and then he was off of Max by like 0.9 seconds or like 0.09, a tenth of a second basically.
Yeah, and then imagine how things would have turned out had Oscar not gotten that penalty for impeding in qualifying. With his P2 time starting right there next to Max with a good launch, he could have
two
maybe got
McLarens
some
right
really
next to
good.
each other on the front row, and then that
Yeah,
would have
so
helped
basically,
their strategy out a lot more because I didn't seem like much of an issue at the time, but Lando Norris's first pit stop, he comes out behind Sergio Perez on those hard tires, which ended up giving him a lot of life. He passes Checo on like that lap or the following lap, so it didn't seem like a big deal, but he ends up just barely, a car length behind Max crossing the start-finish line. You got to think that if that wasn't the case, him ending up behind Checo, that's got to be Lando's race. So I don't know if that's a pat on the back to Red Bull for their pit strategy or wagging the finger at McLaren for just missing out on theirs, but
I mean, from McLaren's point of view, at that point, Lando also had to do that to avoid undercut from Chuck as well. So they didn't, in the long run, you don't know exactly how close those Ferraris are going to be. So,
yeah. But I mean,
had
a
they have
tenth of a
not
second
done,
faster in the pit lane, and he's ahead of
yeah,
Checo.
things could have changed differently. But I definitely think had Oscar been up there, had he not been forced to fight with the Ferraris for most of the race, I think this could have been a both of them on the podium,
Yeah.
both McLarens on the podium. So
I mean,
maybe
you
a
got to
little bit
think
of an
that
missed opportunity there, Bert.
yeah, you got to think that Oscar might have, been able to not just, challenge for a podium, but challenge for a win. He was looking rapid all weekend. And then Max, not the fastest off the line that I've ever seen him, but Lando also with a really clean getaway too, which he normally does not have. Lando is he's bad at lights out. As much as I love that dude, that is one of his biggest faults. And I think Oscar could have put some pressure on him because he usually gets a really great launch. And that is, I believe, a right-hand turn going into turn one, and he would have had the inside corner on that. So a good launch, and that could have been a McLaren 1-2 for all we know.
Yeah, so very optimistic signs from them. I think this is Imola was a track that was going to kind of swing their way a little bit already, but with those, like you said, with those upgrades, looking like this could be a fun season. Hopefully, they'll be able to keep it up. And back to the Ferraris a little bit. Did you catch some of Carlos's frustrations this weekend? I don't know if you maybe heard what he said after the race.
I didn't watch any of the post-race interviews because it was a 6 a.m. race for us over here. So as soon as the anthem started, I was out like a light.
Checked out, yeah.
Yeah, I sparked up a J and went back to sleep. But
Well,
I did hear him bitching a little bit on the radio. I don't know if that was what you're talking about. But
yeah. So, a couple things going on there, like we talked about just a little bit ago. The Ferrari upgrades that they brought here to Imola didn't quite uh, bring exactly what they expected. Apparently, during the race, they were a little bit compromised. Carlos said after in his post-race interview because of things that they cannot talk about, things that he's not supposed to talk about.
ooh, wait, having to do
So
with the upgrades?
he was kind of dancing around. They were trying to hone in exactly what he was frustrated about, what they might have been lacking. They were trying to see if maybe it was the upgrades. He was saying it wasn't really the upgrades. It was more something else he can't talk about. He's not supposed to talk about.
If it's something
From
internal that's that secretive, I wonder if they're having an issue with the Ferrari power unit.
Well, from what I understand, the word is they were had to run some kind of compromising engine mode during the
Oh.
race, which kind of gave them a little bit of a lack of pace. So overall, I think Charles was able to have a good weekend, I think, considering his run of being behind Carlos for much of the season. But so for him, I think it was a good weekend. But overall, for Ferrari, it was a bit of a disappointment,
Yeah.
especially being at home. Um, they got Charles on the podium. Good for them.
It was a
But
very lackluster podium, though. Like I forgot that Chuck was even part of it. When I saw him in the cool down room, I was like, oh yeah, I guess he did finish third, didn't he?
yeah, just being that far back from the lead of the race kind of lacks a little bit of excitement, but it was still good for Charles. He needs that. I think he got a new race engineer this weekend, so things changing in Charles's camp. It seems like for the better. So
Hmm.
um, hopefully they can unlock a little bit more with this upgrade in the next few weeks. Maybe uh, get a little bit more. I think, with that change they made to lean more into setting the car for optimization during the race as opposed to qualifying, that's kind of maybe put them in a tough spot in some of the tracks that are a little bit harder to pass on, that are a little more start dependent, like Imola, especially in Monaco. That's going to be huge. So maybe they go in a different direction with the setup just to kind of get themselves at a better position for qualifying, but we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, if ever there's a place to set up for a launch and for qualifying, just for one lap speed, it's Monaco. That's literally what that place is built for. So it would be nice for them to be competitive, and just have a nice Saturday shootout.
All right. Well, I think now is a good time to get into our props and flops because I want to start with my flop here. Um,
Ooh,
I think they've gotten it before, but I think my flop is going to go to Williams for this weekend. Overall, very very disappointing
yeah.
weekend. I wasn't expecting a whole lot, but you got to at least get your driver's wheels on tight.
Yeah, was that what ended up putting him out?
It was yeah. Well, I mean, he came in for a pit stop, noticed almost immediately out that one of his tires was vibrating.
Mm-hmm.
He knew it was probably a loose tire or whatever. It was on tight enough to be able to get back to the pit, but apparently the nut was just not on there right. And by the time they got it fixed and back out, they were already 2 laps down. So by that point, Alex had to just
Just been it.
call it a day. Yeah,
Yeah. Damn. And dude, he called him out too. I don't know if you remember that. He called him out over the radio.
yeah, because I know sometimes drivers will obscure something like that in
Mm-hmm.
in an effort to avoid getting some kind of black and white penalty, a black and white flag, and a penalty from stewards for releasing a car in an unsafe condition. But
Yeah.
things like that happen. It's you got to call it like you see it. And Alex, it was announced right before this weekend that he signed a contract extension with Williams for next year. So. Um, How's he feeling about that right now? Probably not very good, but
Yeah, dude, that
he's
team is so fucking all over the place, man.
they're in a tough position for this year. They're in a building year very much so. So it's one of those things where Alex is that you can tell he's definitely bought onto the vision and he's there for the long haul. So not really expecting much the rest of the season, honestly. If
I You want to
if they
have
get some
such
points, that's
high
a
hopes
victory.
for that team, but then like they continue to let you down. They look good going into every season. They have that straight line speed, and they'll have these brilliant weekends where they grab at least a couple points from Alex alone. You're not going to get much out of Logan Sargent, but when Alex is having a bad weekend, the team is having a bad weekend, and it's too much of a roller coaster, that fucking team, man. My flop is going to go to Checo. Sergio Perez, he finished 54, nearly 55 seconds behind his teammate.
Wow, wow.
Put it in the wall in practice on an error all of his own. I get it. It was early on, but finished behind both Mercedes, both McLarens, both Ferraris, and his teammate.
Yeah, that's rough. Let me see. Where did he start again? Let's see.
I don't think he had the best qualifying either, so it wasn't like just
Oh yeah, he didn't even get into Q3. So
yeah,
he started 11th on the
yeah. He
grid, and
missed
then
out on
he was
Q3.
able to
That's
get.
right. So I guess
He
he
got
did have
ahead
like a
of.
little bit of a redemption drive, but that's missing Q3. When who was it that outed him? I forget. Nico Hulkenberg made
Yeah,
it into
Hulkenberg.
Q3. Daniel Ricciardo made it into Q3. Yuki made it into Q3. Both Mercedes made it into Q3.
Yeah,
Unacceptable.
getting beat by both V carbs is not a good look.
That's
But
bad.
yeah, I mean, I know they did have those struggles, like we said, getting that car balance right this weekend. But
But that's when it's on you. When the
yeah,
car's not in the right place, you need to be. And Checo's just like, he's Checoed out.
He checked it.
Dude.
Yeah, that's disappointing. Let's see if he can bounce back and not let this turn into a habit.
Yeah. We've seen him do it before. Who's your prop going to?
Props. I mean, this is tough. I mean, I wanted to give it to somebody else, but I can't help but give it to Lando and McLaren. I mean,
Nice.
Lando just going back to back with two great drives. I mean, I don't think he really did anything really wrong this weekend. I mean, he pushed the limits when he needed to.
No, he put
Was
that
able to.
car in every position it had to be outside of a few millimeters, or a couple hundredths of a second, and
Yeah,
had
and
a
I
great
think
drive.
yeah, and good on the McLaren for just keeping the pressure on. You know what I mean? Like they did make a mistake in not giving Oscar the heads up
Yeah.
and letting him get that penalty in qualifying. And I think that could have, like I said earlier, could have cost him two drivers on the podium. So
Yeah.
if not the win. So other than that, I think good for them. Let's keep it up. Let's keep
There we
the
go.
season interesting.
My prop. I almost can't believe I'm going to say this, and it's not going to be happening often, but I got to give Max Verstappen a prop.
Oh
And
yes.
on a weekend where that car clearly was not, as competitive as we've ever seen it, they were struggling. Both cars, their setup was not right. Even going into Sunday, if you compare and contrast Checo versus Max, they still didn't get it done right. But like I said earlier, we knew Max was going to still be able to get things done, and he did it. He puts it on pole. Not only does he put it on pole, he finishes. There wasn't ever a second in that race, outside of a pit stop strategy where he wasn't in complete control with a faster, I believe the McLaren was faster this weekend, a faster McLaren driven by a new competitor, barreling down the side of him, and he held him off till literally the very last second. He did everything he needed to do to get that win.
All while competing in and winning a 24-hour sim race
Yeah.
at Nürburgring.
Yeah. Left
He
the
had
race there to go hop back in the sim.
Yeah, he had a new sim set up at his motorhome or whatever his like a little hospitality thing
Mm-hmm.
is. And I was reading something about how they shipped in like this whole new setup for him so he can compete. And apparently there's a shaky moment because another driver's coffee machine like uh took down the power in like the hospitality, like
So
one section
Max
of
didn't get to
hospitality.
play his game.
Yeah. Yeah, so they had to go out and find an APC, like a power converter, like
Uh-huh.
those little battery things. So this one of Max's like the red line guys had to go like look all around Imola and like couldn't find one, but and
Oh
eventually
my
they realized
God.
that
Could you imagine
the Red
being
Bull team.
imagine being Max Verstappen's henchman for his real life racing and having to go run an errand for his video game racing?
Well, no, it was one of his video game. It was the Red Line henchman that was looking for it, but it
What
was
is
actually ended up
Redline?
being the Red Bull team that had the backup battery backups on just ready waiting for him
What
to
is Redline?
use.
Is that like
So
his sim racing team?
yeah,
Oh, wow. That's hilarious.
yeah, very funny. So I mean, just showing how incredible he is
Dude, what a
as a racing
freak.
driver, competitor. It's pretty crazy,
What a freak.
So
I mean, could you imagine what the other guys in the paddock think of him? Just like, dude, this guy's
they don't.
fucking off the rails
There's
with his shit.
Yeah, it is funny though because you can see the photos of him like in the press conference, like after the race, like he's just so drained. I mean, he
Yeah. Dude, that's almost
was spent all his free time just back in the
you got to
back in
think
the
if
sim competing.
you're Christian Horner or if you're Helmut Marko, I would I would be I would have half the mind to put the kibosh on that and be like, you are not racing this sim race during a race weekend because you have Imola on your mind. We need you to have this track and every nook and cranny of its whereabouts on your mind, not be thinking about the Nürburgring at the same time. But he
I'm
pulls it
sure
off. He pulls it off.
Yeah, and I'm sure that stuff's all fleshed out in his contract. Like I'm sure he's got it built in so that he can do whatever he wants.
I mean, he basically already does.
'Cause he's
He owns that team.
yeah,
Without owning it, he is Red Bull Racing, But that's crazy.
Yeah.
There have been others, of course I have to reference hockey, but like if you play for an NHL team and you ask to go play roller hockey, that's a hard no. They're not going to let you do that because the dynamics, the physicalities of it, the mechanics of it are going to clash with your performance at the fucking NHL game. So if your mind is elsewhere on a different track, any other driver, I think that would be grounds for just turning the Xbox off.
I'm trying to remember who it was, but there's definitely some like football player that was like he got in trouble because he was like playing Fortnite.
You're thinking of Aaron
or, like,
Hernandez and his
like,
murders.
No, it wasn't that, but it was somebody playing Fortnite during the middle of a playoff series when they're supposed to be like.
There have been hockey players who have done the same thing. Patrick Laine got suspended because he was up all night playing Fortnite. He would take his Xbox or his PlayStation on the road, and he would miss practices and shit, being up till like 6, 7 in the morning, missing team meetings, which I get it. I'm about to fire it up as soon as we finish this pod.
I get it too. That sounds good.
Anyways, what do we have to look forward to in Monaco?
I mean, hoping that it's a little bit dry. I don't know. I mean, last year with the rain, it was a little chaotic, but hard to say.
Yeah, I don't mind rain in Monaco just so long as it's not enough to warrant a rolling start and a timed race.
Yeah, I want to at least see them be able to have a little bit of a fair action,
Yeah. I
don't want to see a disaster.
I think I'm a little bit more excited going into this year's Monaco GP, just because there's a new contender. Like last year it was kind of like Max versus Checo, and then Fernando made a little bit of a bid to win that race. But I think this is going to be you know what? I almost said 6. I think this is going to be a 5-way fight. We've got 3 competitive teams. Okay. I do think Ferrari's going to show up competitive. So 3 teams, 5 drivers who I think are going to put in a bid to win this race.
Yeah, I think, like we said earlier, it's much of this race is going to come down to how people qualify, right? So
obviously, yeah.
If there's a good emphasis on qualifying, Are
you interested, if you did the math there, 3 teams, 5 drivers, are you interested in the 1 driver I'm not including in that?
Sure.
If you had to guess, who would you think it was?
Checo.
Yep. I don't think he's going to be the king of the streets here. I think he just hasn't been on it.
Not lately. I mean, he's qualified here P1 before, right?
He's won this. So, I don't know if he's qualified P1. When he won, I think it was that was the one that was the rolling start. That was in the torrential downpour. I don't remember. Yeah, he did qualify P1 because that was when he intentionally put it in the wall, remember? And he interrupted
Supposedly.
Max's.
Allegedly. Yeah.
I mean, come on. He did it.
Yeah, he did not win that weekend, though.
He didn't win that one?
Last year, no. Or
no, Max won last year. He won. This was the year before. That was when they had the rolling start.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't think Checo's going to show up very competitively this weekend, unfortunately. I would love for him to. I just don't see it happening. I don't think it's in the cards.
Oh, 2 years ago. 2 years ago, Checo, and then guess who was in second that race?
Was it Max?
Max was in third.
Was it Chuck? No, it was Carlos.
Yeah, Carlos Sainz.
Yeah.
Could we see let's see, where did he finish last year?
I think Ferrari's going to show up competitive. I think they're going to, tweak whatever they need to tweak. All you have to do is be fast over 1 lap at Monaco, and you can just hold down the fort. Obviously, there are variables that can happen, but if you're fast on Saturday, which we know both those guys are, and I think it can be easily done that they get that car fine-tuned, come Saturday afternoon for a 1-lap stint, and then just hold on.
I forgot for a while that Ocon got a podium in Monaco last year.
Was he P3 or P2?
3.
That's right. It was Max, Fernando, and Esteban Ocon.
It's so random.
Man, what a sport, huh?
And Gasly was 7th. Wow. So quite the turn they've taken.
Yeah, dude, what a fall from grace.
Who's had a bigger fall from grace since this time last year? Aston Martin or
Alpine.
Alpine?
Alpine. But at the same time, you could kind of see the writing on the wall for Alpine going down.
It's
Man,
been a trending
yeah, it's
thing,
been
yeah.
dude, I guess that's an argument to be had. Because you could say like Alpine has fallen really fucking far off. Fernando finished last, 2 laps down last weekend in Imola.
Yeah, I mean, this past weekend for Alpine, it's like, I mean, they were both bad, but Alpine was especially rough.
But
So
they've had a couple races here and there where it looks like things are on the up and up. But I would say overall, I think I would still give it to Alpine because on any day I feel like Aston Martin can do a single upgrade or just get their car spec in the right direction and they're gonna show up much better. And I'm not just saying in standings, but like pound for pound better.
yeah, I mean, I think like looking at both teams, it's like I feel more optimistic about Aston Martin than I do about Alpine for sure. Like Aston Martin has the resources and and most of the people behind them to be able to, I think, get some good momentum. I think it's yet to be seen much this season, but I don't know. I think there's glimmers in there. Just seeing Alonso frequently going backwards after like a pretty decent qualifying finishes is like, I don't know. It's just tough to see.
Yeah, it's been
But
weird. It's been really weird. I don't know. Maybe they'll turn it around this weekend. You know, with
I think it's got the history.
with everything that is negative about Monaco having to win it on Saturday, there's a positive to be found. If you're one of those guys that can just put in a worldie of a lap and then make yourself competitive.
Yeah, I mean, if there's ever a track to capitalize on a good qualifying time,
Yeah.
should be here. So,
Hell yeah. Are you excited for it?
oh yeah,
Not only is that the Monaco Grand Prix, but another part of the Triple Crown. Indy 500 is on Sunday. Are you going to watch?
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I might as well. I mean,
It's less exciting, but
less exciting. There's not much at stake. There's also a first round of pro motocross this weekend on Saturday, so
there's a
be
little bit of
watching that.
NASCAR too. I don't know if you saw what happened at the NASCAR race over the weekend. I forget who it was.
I heard there was a fight.
Yeah, it was. It wasn't Truex. God, I forget which two drivers it was, but somebody got clocked. I don't think it was Denny Hamlin.
Tony Stewart.
It was Bubba, it was Rusty Wallace and Dale Earnhardt Sr. No, I forget who it was, but good little scrap. We need some of that in F1. Could you imagine two dudes pulling up into Parc Ferme and just fucking throwing down?
Yeah, I mean,
Look, NASCAR, for all its faults, I do like the sandpaper that those guys bring.
yeah, I mean, especially when the competition's tight, like if you can just going over and yelling at the other guy can do something to them,
Yeah.
like mentally, kind of just put them on edge. I think it's all part of fun games, but it's I didn't see any of like the footage and stuff and like of the fight or anything, but
It was a good one.
there's got to be it. Yeah,
I'm
I don't
looking
know.
at videos of it right now.
I'm sure there's a line there though where it's like to where it can be ridiculous. It's like
For
I want
sure.
to see. I want to make sure they're like actually like mad at each other.
I don't think it was. I watched when he put him in the wall. I don't even think it was like that bad of a wreck. I think it was just like circumstances and tensions running high.
Yeah.
But at a certain point, you do kind of have to be like, yo, be professional. I don't know. I like to see it every once in a while. If this was happening weekend after weekend in NASCAR, you'd have to look at them and be like, all right, chill the fuck out, boys. But
Yeah, you guys got to get this together. Well, especially when you're talking about like racing cars and stuff, like someone's got some bad blood about, because someone got a little too physical last time, you could kill somebody, taking them out
yeah,
and put them in
dude.
a wall,
Yeah.
so it's crazy, but
Man, this got dark. I don't think we've ever talked about death on this podcast, but holy shit.
no, I mean, well, in on that note, 30 years since
Since Senna.
Ayrton Senna
Wow, full
passed away,
circle.
and we'll see see a special Ayrton Senna livery on the McLaren this weekend in Monaco. Should be pretty cool.
Did you see it?
I don't know if you saw it at all. It's got you
Yeah.
got the Brazilian colors, which is pretty cool. I think Brazil's an amazing place, and they got, they got a little bit of tough times right now with some flooding and stuff in Rio, and so it's cool.
It's a beautiful livery. If you guys
I
haven't seen
love
it,
it.
check it out. I can't wait to see it. I love when there's a new fucking livery for a one-off. That's as good as a rumor. All right.
I will say McLaren's been killing it with the one-off liveries.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. They've been top dog. Do you want to pick your podium?
Oh, man. I'm going to say Max Verstappen, Charles Leclerc, and Fernando Alonso.
What? That's ballsy. You're going to actually throw Fernando up there.
Yeah, why not?
Fun. I'm going to say, I'm going to go. Fuck, dude. I want to do something real ballsy. I'm going to go Lando Norris, Oscar Piastri, Charles Leclerc.
I love it.
Yeah. No Max even. I think they're going to struggle with that Red Bull this weekend. Maybe.
Okay.
I don't know.
Okay, we shall see.
It's probably going to be 3 Max Verstappen somehow, but it'll be fun. Anything else?
No, I think that's it.
Okie dokie. Guys, this has been Barely Qualified, a Formula One podcast, the post-Imola Grand Prix. What's the full name? The Emilia Romagna Rolex timestamp.
Hold on. Formula One MSC Cruises Gran Premio del Made in Italia e de Emilia Romagna 2024.
There we go. That post-race. We will see you guys after Monaco, baby. Peace.
Peace.
Qualified.